Welcome to the Legalpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Sager, founder and CEO of Legalpreneur Inc. As a serial entrepreneur and someone that works exclusively with small business owners legally protecting their business, I'm dedicated to covering common legal issues faced by business owners, providing you with the business knowledge you need to catapult your business's growth and showing you just how some of the world's most elite entrepreneurs have handled these legal and business issues themselves. In true attorney fashion, the information in this episode is not legal advice. This is for informational purposes only, and you should always consult with your attorney before implementing any of the information in the show. In case you missed it, our flash sale for Dream Bigger is now over. That crazy good deal that you'll never see again, it's gone. However, tickets are actually now 50% off. General, VIP, whatever you want, 50% off. Get them now because this event is going to sell out. I don't know when, however, it will sell out. We are so excited for this. We have Allie Webb, Danielle Canty, Pollyanna Reed, we have Chris Harder, Lori Harder, so many more big names that are going to be announced soon, so stay tuned. But for now, go get your ticket, 50% off, and get those rooms booked as well. I cannot wait to see you in Phoenix, October 5th to the 7th. Hello there. Welcome back to another episode of the Legalpreneur Podcast. Today's guest is Danielle Langton, a business strategist, which I know many of us need because we just happened to start making money and it became a business. But now we're just like, what am I doing? How do I really create this to be something sustainable? And that's exactly what Danielle does. She is taking the business world by storm and really helping so many women create long-term sustainable businesses without just continuing to just spin your wheels, like actually have a true strategy. That's why I love Danielle. She has so much to bring to the table. And thank you, Danielle, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrea. I'm super excited to be here today.
Amazing. So let's get started. Please tell everybody how you got to where you are today, because you have a pretty fun story to tell.
I think this is like the best question. I always feel like people like skim over this and they're like, and then one day I woke up and I had like this thriving business.
Yeah, you were an overnight success. That took 20 years to get there.
Right. And like everyone forgets about like all of the nights that they like stayed up or all of the things that they like went through, or they were like, you know, maybe I just hang it up and like figure something else out. But that is not, we are not an overnight success. This story has, you know, morphed for what it is, I would say, like for many, many years. But really how it all got started was back in 2010, I was hired right out of college at the H.J. Heinz Company. And perhaps like many listeners, I was so excited for this first job. I mean, you get hired right out of college. It's like what your parents always wanted you to do. It's the goal, right? Like you're like, okay, I got this really, really awesome job. And so I started climbing the corporate ladder. You couldn't have told me that I needed to be anywhere else. I was making $50,000 a year, which seemed like $7 million.
Absolutely.
And I was so extremely happy. I worked on a sales operations team, and within that team, we were in charge of launching new products. So anything that Heinz sold under their brands to supermarkets, we essentially worked on like the packaging, the formulas, and then also selling those into like Walmart's, Targets, and then your local grocery stores. And that's really where my love for sales and strategy really started, because I would say I really love, obviously, like making sure that the products that are going out are really cool, but I also want to make sure that they're successful. And so that's how my career got started at a Fortune 500 company. But if you've ever worked at a Fortune 500 company and you're like in your early 20s, you're thinking to yourself, like, I'm probably going to be 60 before I ever make it anywhere in this organization. And oh, by the way, I don't want to wear business professional, and I don't want to commute to this office. And I don't know how these people have been doing the same thing for 40 years. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go, and I just am going to go to a small startup. And so I ended up being recruited to a tech startup that supported brands and retailers. So Heinz obviously being in CPG, and then this next company that I went to work for worked with larger brands and retailers. So I had clients such as like Vineyard Vines, Dick's Sporting Goods, Lilly Pulitzer, the Kohls, all of those of the world. And really what we did, something similar to what I was doing at Heinz, but in a way cooler way, is we were working with those brands and retailers to say, next season, what are you going to be selling? And how much are you going to be selling that for? So if you have any background in retail, you know they start planning way in advance on like what they're going to be selling in the upcoming seasons. And what the software that I was selling did was it would say, here is how much of that item you should buy. Here's what they should price it at. Here's the colorways that they should go with. And so it was just collecting customer data, running it through an algorithm, and sending that back to a brand and retailer.
Is it similar to like Open to Buy?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I used to own a clothing boutique.
Yeah.
And I did manufacturing, like I did the whole thing.
It's very similar. And so what most brands and retailers do is they would look at like, okay, we sold this last year. Here's how much we sold. But sometimes historical data isn't always like the best reflection of like what's going to sell in the future. And so this software essentially would go out and get like current customer data, bring that back in, and then it would say, okay, going forward, this is what the customer wants. So maybe this colorway sold really well last year, but going forward, the customer actually wants this colorway. And so this was like true dream job. If you know anything about me, I like love clothing. I love like footwear. I love shopping. Like you couldn't have told me that I like needed to be anywhere else. During that time, I also was traveling. We had clients in the UK, so I was traveling over there a ton. I had an awesome team, and I was mid-20s, like racking up hotel points, racking up airline points. I had like all the status you could ever want as an Enneagram 3. That's my favorite. Yeah. Like I just like feeling like important, or like as if that is important, but it like really like fed my soul at the time. But what I learned was, although I was making, more money than I had ever had before, I had no time. And I was still reporting, into somebody else that was kind of dictating my schedule, dictating when I needed to be in the office, just dictating too much of my life as an Enneagram 3 for sure. And so I decided in 2019 that I wanted to go out on my own. And if anyone has like ever felt that like deep urge of like, one day I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I know I'm not meant to report to anyone else. Me personally, I was like, I've got to be on my own schedule. And I needed to figure out why we were always being faced with, you can either make a lot of money and not have any time, or you can have a ton of time and not make any money. And I always felt like we were faced with those choices. And so being someone that's like, that's not good enough for me, I'm going to go figure out how to do both. And so I retired in 2019, walked away from like a VP title, 6-figure salary, all of like the security things like benefits, all of that stuff. And I said, I have no idea what exactly I'm going to do, but I'm going to take my 11 years of experience and I want to help women own businesses grow within sales and strategy. So that's exactly what my background is like, how do we take the business that you already have and essentially optimize what you're doing to make more money and be supported in a way that doesn't take up more of your time? And so the consultancy business that was born essentially helps women make sure they are selling the right products, make sure they're pricing them appropriately and not undercharging, and make sure that they've got the right people in place that are, supporting them so that they aren't the only ones working and they're not working 60 hours a week. Now there are days, of course, or weeks in which we do have to do that, but that shouldn't be the norm. And so some of the wins that really, happen in our business are, of course, there's, extreme revenue growth and we celebrate those wins, but we also celebrate like when someone can take off like 10 days and be completely unplugged in their business, or when someone raises their prices, 2x, and actually their number of clients increases as well. And so those are the kind of things that we celebrate, but by no means was this an overnight success. Again, this kind of started back in 2010, so here we are in 2022.
That's incredible. I love to hear what you're doing today, but really quickly, I am so curious, what other products does Heinz have? I mean, I'm not even a ketchup fan. I'm just so curious, like what other products were there?
So guilty. Also not a ketchup fan. However, Other things that they sell. So this is when I was like working on the brand, they also had Ore-Ida French fries were underneath their like brand. So
Oh,
frozen food.
yeah.
Um,
Okay.
at that point, they still had Boston Market, which
Oh,
was
okay.
still like frozen under their umbrella. They said had there's like Heinz vinegar, mustard, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Um, there is
They have the relish too. I'm thinking like the Sam's
yes,
3-pack, like the
yep,
relish,
yep.
mustard, ketchup.
Oh yeah. And then one of the cool things whenever I was if we're gonna get like nerdy about like
Yes.
ketchup, is one of the things that launched whenever I was there was the like dip and squeeze. So if you have ever gone to
Oh,
like Chick-fil-A, but
yes.
that was like back in like maybe 2011, 2012, like they were like signing that contract with them. That's really why you don't really see those a lot of other places. They were the first ones to have access to that. So that was a cool project that I did. Again, not a super big ketchup fan, but I could teach
Yeah.
you all the cool things about like where to hit the bottle, when the cap doesn't twist off, like too many things that
I
are
love
like
that.
not valuable but interesting.
Yeah, I love that. That's so funny. No, but that's and I love okay, so your experience at the startup, that okay, so I'm same as you, love shopping, love like all the things. And so I was like, I'm gonna open a clothing boutique. Like this is perfect. But then it was just too much for me. And I was like, I don't want to be this deep into the industry. And so then I became the small business attorney supporting all of these boutique owners. And I was like, now I know a lot more secrets and I get it just enough of a taste into the industry. So that's really like, I actually have a TikTok video going like semi-viral right now. And I'm talking about like industry secrets about like behind the scenes stuff. Um, and I talk about how I'm just like a highly paid secret keeper. And so,
Right? I think
yeah.
that's what's so cool is like what you get to dip your toe into things because you're like, well, I'm really interested in that. And then you can be like,
Mhm.
actually, I want to support those same people just in a different way. Like I don't want to be in that.
Yes.
I just want to support them and
Yes.
make them do their job like better than ever before.
Yes, yes. Okay, so I'm very curious. Is there a specific type of business that you work with? Do you work with product? Because I know you were in CPG for a while, then like retail, a lot of people think that is products, but really retail is a service. Um, so I'm curious, is there a particular type of business that you tend to work with?
Yeah, so we don't discriminate. We work with both product and service-based businesses. Obviously, that they're being so different and just the expenses that go into a product-based business and just how you're going to grow a product-based business with inventory, totally, totally different than what it looks like for a service-based entrepreneur. Within all of our clients, I would say we typically skew like 60-40, 60 being service-based, 40 being product-based. And it is so similar because although there are so many differences between the two, the similarities of like the roller coaster of entrepreneurship is the same. So people are like, well, why don't you just work with product based businesses? And I'm like, sometimes what we're going to apply to a product based business is actually really similar to a service based business. And like the highs and lows, the same. Like we've got really good seasons, we've got really slow seasons, like we all can get on board with entrepreneurship being like that roller coaster. It doesn't really matter which side, so we serve both.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so legalpreneur as a service-based business, if we were bringing you in, what are some things that you would look at?
Yeah, so we would want to first look at, one of the first things we do is like we do an audit of what are you currently selling, everything from like the highest ticket to the lowest. How are you essentially like serving clients, and then what are all of the price points for those? So we want to know what you're selling, what you're currently priced at, and what is the volume for each of those. So like, do we have things that we currently don't need that people aren't really buying but we think they need? Do we need to reposition some of those? Do we need to reprice some of those? Is there anything that's currently missing that you're not selling that you're like losing customers on? So that is essentially like what we want to do whenever we get into a business. And my favorite thing is when people have things within their product suite, whether they're product or service, just things that we can get rid of. Like things
Yeah.
like, we had a product based business that we were working with that had, close to like 70 products. And like, I don't know if you've ever been to like the Cheesecake Factory, but that menu, of like so many different options.
So many, too many to choose
Right.
from.
So like that's essentially what this business was also struggling with. There are like too many options for like a similar type customer. And so like let's pare that down and decrease that cost. And so I also love getting rid of, products that just aren't serving the business in a really like profitable way. Once we get through all of that, we want to look at like who's supporting you on your team. So we can sell all the greatest things and we can price them all and you can be making all the money in the world. But if you're the only one supporting yourself, that only lasts so long. And so we want to bring in the right people and make sure you're feeling really, really supported. And so that's like the big picture that we look at. And we want to make sure you feel really good about like what are the next 6 months, like what are you going to be selling and when are you going to be selling it and how should you be messaging that to your audience. So those are exactly like what we do, and we dig in, and I feel like I like oversimplified it, but that's exactly what we do.
Well, I mean, I think that's an important point to make because a lot of times we overcomplicate many things in the business that even me 100%, I do this all the time. And some days like I'll call Kayla, my COO, and I'm like, oh my god, I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. And normally I'm just like, okay, I'm taking the afternoon off, and then I just like take a step back and just like I always call it like going back to the beginning, because it's like, okay, when I literally have nothing, what did I do in the beginning? Because I started with nothing. It's like, okay, what did I do? But okay, one question I have when it comes to price points, what are some things people can look at and determine themselves, hey, am I underselling? Is this price too high? What are some things I can begin to look at myself?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we can take one like product or service based, but we'll take service based for like this example. And a lot of the clients that come to us typically are priced super low. And that's where they're like hitting their threshold of like burnout. They're like, I actually can't take on any more clients, but I know this business can be bigger. But we're kind of like at this like point in which I don't know like what to do. And I feel like if I increase my prices, I'm going to lose everyone. And there are some people out there that are like, just raise your prices and like see what happens. But one of the first things we always want to do is we want to look at like, what's the demand for your actual service? So like that will really tell us whether you're priced, too low. That will actually like confirm. If you've got more business than you know what to do with and people are just like lining up nonstop and you're like, we actually can't take on all of this business, like that is one of your first signs to say, okay, like potentially we need to be looking at like raising our prices. And so that is for like a service-based business. For a product-based business, it gets to be a little bit more like black and white. You're looking at your costs, you're looking at like essentially like the inventory that you need to have on hand, all of the other people that you're paying, shipping, all of that to really determine your cost. And so it gets to be a little bit more black and white over there. But for service-based, you can essentially look at like what other people are charging in the market. But again, like they might be selling to someone different. So we don't always love saying like, go look and see what other people are charging. Like, I think it really comes down to like the number that feels right for you and your business, the number that feels right for the person that you want to work with. So we like to use pricing as like a gatekeeper. So like if there are people that we don't want to work with, or there's like, they're not really ready to work with us, like we want to be able to have a downsell, and we want to be able to like have a price point that's like really appealing and attractive for like the right customer. And so that's really, I think, a few things that you can look at if you want to like start analyzing your own pricing to see like if you're priced like good, bad, you need to evaluate.
I love that. That's great advice. And that's actually what I did when I was really in the prime of my law firm. We would just have so many trademark applications coming in. I'm like, think I need to raise my prices. And then and I tested. I was always testing. There was a time where I had a very, very high price point because I honestly was just like, let's see what happens. And I did not have very many sales at all. And so I was like, okay, and I was like, this honestly just doesn't even align with me.
Mm-hmm.
So then we dropped it back down. And the membership as well. I mean, gosh, like now our membership is $349 a month, but it started at like $69 a month.
Yeah. I think that's what's so important to call out about pricing. I love that you mentioned that. Is like, I think sometimes we feel as though whatever price we pick, like we're married to it forever and we never can change it. And that everyone's looking at our pricing. and like waiting for us to change it. And something we talk to our clients about all the time is like, if you think about like Netflix isn't like, you get your Netflix like every single month and you're like, you pay it and you're like, yeah, whatever. But Netflix isn't like, we're really sorry, but we're going to be like increasing the pricing. You get an email one day and it's like, hey, your price is going up to like $19.99. Like, you cool with it? If not, like, we'll see you later. And so you get to like evolve your pricing over time when the demand is there for sure. And if you raise it too high, this is like essentially like why you want to do a little bit of like testing too and making sure it feels aligned, exactly like what you said. It can always like adjust from there. And so it's not anything that you're like totally married to forever. So it's a good thing to keep in mind.
And what's so funny, and I know we all see this all the time. I was seeing like other trademark attorneys, they're like, oh, we charge this for our trademarks, which was at that higher price point that I was at. And I was like, oh, then I should be charging that. But it never felt right because who I wanted to serve was small business owners. The price point, like small business owners would not be able to afford that.
Right.
And I was like, well, let me just see what happens. And I was like, this doesn't feel good. And this is why people are not buying. So yes, go ahead.
No, I think it's something that we also have to like take into consideration, like as an entrepreneur too, because we see other people doing things in their business or selling something similar. They may have been doing this for the last like 5 to 10 years and you might be in year 1. And so I think sometimes we get caught up in seeing other people, especially in like the online space. God, it can be like so overwhelming, but we see other people like doing all of these things and we're like, okay, I need to be charging that much, or I need to be doing that. Or I need to be like making that much money, when in reality, like we might be comparing like our like year 1 or year 2 to like their year like 5 or 7. And so like you can aspire to want to get to that, but that probably took a lot of effort and lessons for them to get to that point. And so I think it's just like also just being cautious of like comparing like what you're selling and what you're pricing yourself at compared to others in the market, because there's so many variables that play into it.
Oh, so true. So true. Okay, so when you're working with a client, is there like, do you find there's a particular good fit? Like, I don't know if you have like, oh, you have to meet this threshold before we work with you. If you have that, what is it? Or is there like, we find this is really like where we find our clients, this is where they are?
Yeah. So I think before, or whenever we like first really started our business, we were like, we want people that are making like X number of dollars, like, and you need to be doing this or we won't work with you. And in reality, what we've like learned over time is like the mindset of the entrepreneur and like where they want to go and like how like their idea of growth is actually like the first thing. And then like, what do they want to do with their business and how do they want to grow? Because if they want to be like an overnight success, or they want to just like make a lot of money and do it in maybe like a not authentic way, like not for us. And so like first and foremost, it comes down to like, okay, what is their like true like mindset and idea of growth and like their like long-term goal? And then we go from there as far as like their revenue. I would say like for the Founders Club, which is our mastermind, we typically work with entrepreneurs that are doing multiple 6 figures. They're working towards multiple 6 figures, because we really want to make sure like at that point, like your business is like proven out, you have revenue, you essentially now like need to like optimize your strategy to essentially allow you to scale without your time essentially being increased the same amount.
Yeah. No, that's great. Going through our VC round or our seed round and talking to a lot of VCs, we got really clear on those numbers for us, because of course I'm just like, oh, anybody and everybody. But of course, like when you talk to everyone, you reach no one. And so and because now we have so many more offers, like we've never like sat down with the strategist, but going through the process, like with the different VCs, like they told us what they were looking for. It's like, okay, we got to get clear on this and get clear on this. So in our, like for the Legalpreneur membership, we know that if they're below 80,000, if they're not making $80,000, like they're not ready for the Legalpreneur membership. And I think that knowing those certain parameters, like who exactly is your audience, like who's the best fit for this, it goes such a long way. Like that, knowing that number, I'm not going to say like completely changed the game for us, but it like opened our eyes to a lot. And like you're like somebody like you, a business strategist, like that's something we've been thinking, like it's like, okay, we know we need something, but hearing from you, okay, we need like somebody to come in and help us more with overall strategy. Paring down those numbers is such a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so grateful to know that you exist.
Likewise. I want to add something to what you
Yeah.
just said because it's so, so important, is when you're clear on like who you're selling to and like their budget, it allows you to be so much more like authentic and relatable in like what you're selling versus being like, this is for everyone. Because, you know, if we said like, hey, our mastermind's for anyone who wants to, you know, make multiple six figures, we could get people in there that are like still in corporate, haven't started their business, that are like, well, for sure I want to make multiple six figures, but they're not there yet. So you've got to have like a, you know, like a proven concept. You've had to have like previous sales, like likely over six figures. And now you're like, okay, you know, 250,000, you know, 500,000 like seems doable. 750 like seems doable. What do we need in order to get there? But you're so, so right. Like we have to be able to say like, this is who it's for and this is who it's not for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always say like Legalpreneur, the company, is for any small business owner, but the membership in particular, that like we know who this is for, who this is not for. But switching gears a little bit, I know that you have done some things legally in your business to make sure that you're protected. So I would love if you could touch on that a little bit because, of course, I want everybody to hear from other business owners. Hey, like I'm not over here preaching to the choir. Like other people do this stuff too.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when we're working with other business owners, it's nice for me to be able to say like, here's what we've done previously and here's what worked and here's what I actually can help you not do in the future, like things that we, you know, probably should have, you know, hired help on and didn't. And so one of the ways or one of the things in which we're really lucky and smart about is whenever we were, you know, my first business was established in Pennsylvania and then we moved to Texas in 2020. And I, you know, I'm sure I could spend my whole day like Googling or asking around for other people, like how they would change their business from one state to another state. But sometimes you just need to like bite the bullet and hire someone. And so that's essentially like what we did. And I'm like, feel good about that. Like, great work. You did that. But like something that we did in the beginning, which I feel like I know I can't be alone in this, but when I had to have like listened to a podcast or taken a course or something and they're like, and you have to have a contract in place. And I'm like, well, we're not making like, I'm like, okay. And so I Google contracts and, you know, you get a contract and you put it into place and you think like, okay, well, at least we have a contract and you check the box. And then a year goes by, 2 years goes by, 3 years goes by, and you're still being like covered and like doing air quotes, like covered by this like fake Google contract that like no attorney ever like looked at or signed off on. And like, for all we knew, like could be like no good at all and like not be able to like stand up on its own. And so if you're out there and you feel like, sometimes we hear this from clients and they're like, yeah, but my clients like love me and they trust me and we like don't really need a contract. And I'm like, okay, until it's too late and you're like, we should have just had a contract in place from an attorney, not from one that you just found on the internet and like updated. And so those are like our like successes and our like, please learn from us and do better.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I 100% like understand that mindset when you're starting out because typically you have a very limited budget. And so the last thing you want to do is, and also stuck in the head is like, I don't want to go spend thousands of dollars on an attorney, but not knowing that when you work typically with a small business attorney, it's not going to cost thousands of dollars to get a contract. Like even our templates in the contract vault, a whole bundle is $199. And those are attorney drafted contracts. And many small business attorneys will draft even a custom contract for several $100s. Like it's not thousands. But I totally understand the mindset. But like you said, like you start out with that and you think you're okay, but then there aren't issues for a while. And so you think you're okay. And then that one time something happens and it's like, mother flipping, like, why didn't I just spend a couple of $100s way back when to get legit contracts? So I understand you guys if you're there, but accept it and then release it and take care of it.
And also, I think there's like a really good mindset around like, if you're willing to cover yourself on such like a level, it allows you to really like grow and step into like that next level of your business without fear, like knowing that like you don't have to worry about anything happening. I think that just like allows you to really like step into your business as like a true business owner versus being like, we don't really need it. This business is small. Like no one's going to sue us. Like we don't really like, I think it's just a different mindset shift.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay. So before I let you go, this has been amazing, by the way. I got to ask, what is your number one business tip?
My number one business tip is I feel like if you are in corporate or you're in entrepreneurship and you feel as though you're being faced with either making more money or making more time or finding more time, know that there is something out there for you in which you can totally have both. I think it is wildly important to create a life, not just a living. Our time here is so short. And so I feel like if you are in a place in which you feel stuck or miserable, like know there are other options out there. And it really just comes down to like investing in yourself and knowing that like you deserve whatever is next. And so my number one business tip is like search for those opportunities that allow you to like do what you love and also have like time for yourself and your loved ones. Yeah. I think it is so important. So that's what I would say.
Amazing. I love that. Okay, where can everybody find more about you? Where can they sign up for all the things? Yeah. Give it to us.
So you can go, our Instagram is at Danielle_Langton. You can find all of the things over there. Our website's daniellelangton.com. And then if you are interested in just learning about just different mindset shifts that have to happen for growing like the most optimal business, you can text growth, GROWTH, to 512-548-2448. And that is where we send once a week, just something to get you started, a little bit, maybe it's a quote, maybe it's a journal entry, just a little bit of inspiration to get you in the right mindset to take your business to the next level.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to sign up for that. I need that. Well, Danielle, thank you so much. This has been amazing. And I will see you guys next time.
Thanks, Andrea.
Here at Legalpreneur, we're committed to providing a supportive legal community for all business owners. I know how scary the legal stuff can be. If you found this information helpful, I would be so grateful if you could share it with a fellow business owner. And quite frankly, it doesn't cost anything to rate, review, or subscribe to the show. Your support helps me reach more listeners, which allows me to support more business owners in their entrepreneurial journey. Have any questions or comments about the show? Feel free to drop me a line on Instagram. I promise I read all of the messages and comments. And if you want to be a guest on the show or know someone that would make a great guest, simply fill out our application form and a team member will reach out if we think it's a good fit. I'll see you in the next episode.